All right, so after last week's email, the Fed did exactly what we predicted they were going to do, which was raise prime another quarter point to 8.25%. Yes, you heard that right. It's interesting because some people, that I work with or I know weren't even sure what prime was. So I thought that it'd be important to let everybody know that's how high it is. It's crazy to think because they've raised rates so incredibly fast. That being said, the language that the Fed used in this last meeting was different than the language he had been using prior. And we sort of predicted this, that would be the last Fed rate hike. And that's what we're still predicting, is that this should be the end of the rate hikes, especially given the language that they were using. The general consensus with economists and people who are in the market and data analysts is that the Fed doesn't really have to rely on data anymore because they've already broken something in the system. And that is why we're predicting that they're not going to increase prime anymore. And if you haven't guessed already, they broke the banking system. So we've had like 4 bank shutdowns over the last month or so. So that is pretty significant. It obviously has an effect over people feeling like their money is safe in the bank. It has an effect on the bank's deposits. A lot of people are, the flight to safety is more into treasuries, higher interest bearing CDs, money market accounts, that sort of thing. So some banks have lost a significant amount of deposits because people are investing their money into other safe vehicles. They realize that their checking and savings accounts were paying them next to nothing and that they could get very safe returns elsewhere. Treasuries are a big one that people are investing in, which obviously takes money out of the banking system. So that hurts banks in terms of deposits. That being said, I've talked to a lot of small local banks and even some regional banks that are actually getting more deposits into their bank as a result of the, bank shutdowns, whether it's SVB or our beloved First Republic Bank, which is super unfortunate. So like I said, there are some small banks that didn't do a bunch of high interest rate or low interest rate loans. That means their volume wasn't as high. Their interest rates were higher, so they weren't operating on such low margins. Those people are doing okay. They're doing business. They're, keeping deposits. They're still doing loans. Have they gotten a little bit more conservative? Some banks, yes, have gotten a little bit more conservative. As we know, banks do not like risk. And right now the market is a little dicey. So there are still lenders out there lending. But between the banking crisis and this sort of impending CRE loan crisis that they're anticipating with all these office loans that are going to be coming due and then they're going to be underwater and all of this, we've all heard the scary stories of, for example, the office building in San Francisco that was valued at $300 million 2 years ago. They're now, willing to entertain offers at $60 million today. So things like that are going to affect the banking industry. I don't think it's going to necessarily have so much of an effect on multifamily, but it will for a time, right? Because these banks are taking bigger losses on their books. And so they're going to have to recalibrate somehow. So that will affect us in the short term, potentially, but I'm seeing a slight uptick in activity recently. People are trying to make deals happen. People are running the numbers. Some deals are going into contract. We're still dealing with a ton of super low inventory. So it's like lack of inventory plus interest rates, being a little too high and mixed with cap rates that are still really low. It's creating this really kind of interesting storm that we haven't had in a long time. Like the last cycle, we did not have we had an inventory problem, but the problem was we had too much inventory. Now in this cycle, we have not enough inventory. So that's kind of changing the way things are happening, which is why we haven't seen this big crash in real estate, right? Because the demand is still pretty high relative to the inventory that's available. So that being said, there's a ton of big news coming out this week. If you guys know Barry Habib, who owns MBS Highway, he is an economist. He speaks a lot. He's really highly focused on interest rates and the mortgage industry. He has been telling us for months to circle your calendars for May 10th. May 10th is when the new CPI and PPI reading comes out. And the data suggests that some of the highest inflation numbers are going to fall off for the 12-month trailing, which means that inflation is going to take a meaningful dip. It's not going to be anything crazy high, but it's going to dip, and we expect to see some treasuries scale back a bit after that reading. Nothing earth-shattering. It's not like we're going to go back down to rates in the 3s or probably even the 4s. We might see hopefully like a quarter basis point or something like that. It won't be anything crazy, but it should be enough to maybe move the needle a little bit to get some people off the sidelines, which is really great for all of us, right? So we shall see about that next week. I can report on some of these things that are coming back. There's also a big loan officer survey that's coming out this week as well. So basically it's going to cover basically like January to like right after the SVB Signature Bank takeover or collapse. So we aren't even going to get into basically the survey kind of talks about how the tightening of credit or how available is credit and financing in the market. So I anticipate that report is not going to be very good, even though it still doesn't include the most recent bank failure, First Republic. So that being said, though, we're not anticipating this to be a good report. And all of these things are going to feed into why we anticipate that the Fed won't be increasing rates any longer. So the general consensus is that the Fed might even start cutting rates by the end of 2023 or early 2024. So we'll see what happens with that. But there is financing available. The market has been changing every week for the last year. So if you have deals that you're looking at, financing that you're considering, the best thing that you could do is to continue to check in every week, because the quote that you got last week might be different than what you got this week. It might be the same lender, but it could very well be a different lender, because there's a lot of lenders coming in and out of the market. Some of our lenders are starting to get more competitive, and they're trying to get a little bit more creative to attract business to come in, because it has been pretty slow for a lot of people basically since the beginning of the year. So there are a lot of lenders who are hungry for business, which is great for you, great for me. That do have some specials, or they're trying to just attract more business with more competitive options. So anyways, reach out to me if you have any questions about that. And the last and final thing I wanted to mention to you guys is that I am speaking on a panel on May 18th at an event called The Future is Female. The event's in Reno, but you can also chime in via Zoom. It really is kind of like an investing 101. So if you're a seasoned investor, it might not be the thing for you. But the cool thing is that all of the ticket sales, the tickets are $97 each. All of those proceeds go to the Women and Children's Center of the Sierras, which is a charity that supports women and children who are in poverty, to basically give them resources and tools and assistance to get them back on their feet, to help them to be successful and be independent. So it's a really, really great cause. If you're an experienced real estate investor, I get it. You might not want to watch it, or you might. So maybe you'll learn something. So if you feel compelled, do buy a ticket. It goes towards a really good cause. And if you'd like to join in, please do. Like I said, I'll be on a panel with some other female professionals, and then we'll also workshop. So I'll do like a 15-minute workshop on investing in apartments at that event as well. So I'd love to see you there. I'd love to see you support, and I appreciate all the support you've given me so far, and I hope that you're getting value out of these videos. I really, really appreciate all the comments that I get and all the communication I get off of these emails. So thank you so much. And I'll leave a link to that event in the email today as well. So thanks so much, and I will see you next week.